Good.
You didn't like Camden crying.
Yeah. I gave you more than most people make in a year, right?
2 years.
They moved into what's used to be house. Just trying to remember where you were. She lived like 4 houses, 5 houses. It's part of the fabric of it. So, just 3 minutes. So Wendy and Mark came over some service. And Wendy was I throw this one exercises.
Williams' last name is what?
Cerulean is his last name.
I remember.
Aaron Cerulean. That was the dad. Aaron was. I thought. Pretty fun picture, you guys.
That's the call to order.
Say amen after that.
Okay. We would like to welcome everyone out to our city council meeting this evening and would like to call this meeting to order. We would like to start with a pledge, with a prayer from Drew Burton and then a pledge from Sam Bunker. So if Drew could come forward.
Our kind and gracious Father in heaven, we're very grateful that we can gather here this evening with the Orem City Council. We're grateful for our homes here in this free area, and particularly for our homes here in this choice area in the Orem community. We love this community and we love those who live here, and we're grateful that we can be here tonight and be a part of this process. We ask thy blessing to be with Mayor Brunst and the City Council, and bless and watch over them as they lead us in the deliberations and in conducting the business that will be discussed here tonight. We're grateful that we can be here and be a part of this process, and we pray that will bless us as we, as a group, discuss items that pertain to our community, and we pray that we can take the time to be involved in those and help in making decisions that will affect our lives. We love thee, Father, and again pray for thy Spirit to attend and guide us in the things that we will do tonight, and ask these blessings humbly in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. If we could have Sam come forward.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Drew and Sam. Would like to make mention that Tom McDonald of our City Council is not in attendance tonight, asked to be excused, and should be with us at our next regular session. We would like to start out with the approval of the minutes, and that is the minutes of City Council meeting December 8th, 2015, January 12th, 2016, and January 26th, 2016. Do I have a motion? You need to push the button.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you. We wanted to go up to our upcoming events. On February the 13th, we have a ribbon cutting for Advance Auto Parts at 1484 North State Street. The time has been changed to 10 a.m., and we'd encourage all to attend. Also on April 6th to the 8th, we have the Utah League of Cities and Towns Mid-Year Convention at the Dixie Center in St. George. And that's an excellent meeting for many of the government officials within the state. As far as appointments to boards and commissions, we have one appointment to the Transportation Advisory Commission, and that is Gar Judd. He is a longtime resident of the city of Orem. He's done a lot of work with the Boy Scouts of America, businessman, and many of us know him. And then a reappointment of Keith White to the Transportation Advisory Commission. Do we have a motion on this, please?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
You need to push the button.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you. Any opposed? Okay. I don't believe we have any new Neighborhood and Action officers. We would like to start with recognition of our state runners-up, Mountain View Youth Football. This seems to be a regular occurrence in our city council meetings, which is pretty exciting. Carl Hurst, do you want to bring forward the team, please? Thank you.
Mayor and City Council, once again, it's my pleasure to introduce you to another one of our championship youth teams from Orem. We have a long tradition of providing or having quality athletes in Orem City. We are very proud of this group. When I raised my kids, if you kept them busy, kept them sweaty, and kept them tired, they turned out pretty good, and I think we've got a pretty good group here. So I'm going to turn it over to their head coach, let them tell them some of their accomplishments, and then we'll present them to you.
City Council Forum, we appreciate the opportunity for these boys to come stand here. What you're looking at here is a bunch of fine young men that, particularly for the Mountain View area, this is the first time that a team has been able to accomplish the feat of taking the championship in the A division in over a decade for Mountain View. So it's quite an accomplishment. A lot of these boys have been playing together since they were in third, fourth grade. But the thing that I like most about these boys is their leaders on and off the field. Both in school, a majority of them are on the honor roll. And when we came and was able to practice over here at your facility, they were always there to help clean up and leave it in better position, in better condition than when they got there, with the garbage or the tools or things that were left out, keys, returning them to lost and found, water bottles that were left out here on your baseball diamond. They were always the first one to go pick it up. So this is exciting for them to be able to meet the leaders, the current leaders of the community, and exciting for me to introduce you to the future leaders of this community, because they are a great group of kids, great examples, and look forward to doing what we can to help serve more in the community. The championship team, several of them have been selected to go to an FBU conference down and represent down in Nevada, different places across the states and countries. So thank you for the opportunity to meet these boys.
Well, congratulations. We want to give you a round of applause. Then I would like to come and have my picture taken with the team, and then we'd like to have the team meet the city council and shake their hands. So.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Half of you go on this side and half of you stay on that side.
I don't think you waited for anybody to say.
Coach, you want to be in here with us?
No.
Then can you come in closer? Everybody would like to get you in where we're close enough for pictures. So come in closer, closer. Come on over, stand behind. Okay. Okay, I think he's getting extra time. Okay, if you could go up to the city council and start with Councilmember Spencer there. Congratulations.
Nice job. Nice. Tackles on guys, I guess. Nice job. Oh, love the tie. Nice job, guys. Thank you. Great work. Nice. Thanks again. Congratulations. Onward with next year. Hate it when the season's over, though, don't you? Thank you. Good job. We're proud of you. Thanks for your help with the appreciate it. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. Good job, Coach. Way to go. Thanks for all you do. Thanks for coaching our boys.
We love the youth in our city, and we appreciate very much what they do. Okay, we would like to go on to a proclamation. Did you have a comment you're trying to make? Okay. Proclamation for FCCLA. Whereas Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America, the national nonprofit family-focused student organization for family and consumer sciences students through grade 12, helps youth assume their roles in society through family and consumer sciences education in areas of personal growth, of family life, of vocational preparation, of college readiness, of leadership, and of community involvement. And whereas the organization extends classroom learning through chapter projects that develop leadership and initiative and helps young men and women learn how to plan, make decisions, and carry out and evaluate programs of action as they work with other youth and adults in their school and community. And whereas Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America offers members an opportunity to work together for common purposes for the improvement of themselves, their families, and their communities. And whereas the week of February 7th through February 13th, 2016 has been designated National FCCLA Week with the theme Empower. Now, therefore, I, Richard F. Bruntz, Jr., Mayor of the City of Orem in Utah, do hereby designate February 7th through the 13th, 2016 as the National FCCLA Week in the City of Orem and urge all citizens to acquaint themselves with the activities and values of Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America, to show interest in it and to give help and encouragement to the young men and women who are working to achieve knowledge and experience that will help prepare them for the future responsibilities as active and concerned adult members of society. Dated this 9th day of February, 2016. Do we have a motion to go ahead and accept this proclamation?
Go ahead, Dave.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, let it be done. Is the person here, the people from the FCCLA group here? Would you like to come forward? And I would like to give this to you here in the front. Stand here with me in the front, okay? And I would like to shake your hand and have this in front. And Steve, can you not take so long this time? Okay. Hey. Take that with you and then come on up.
Thank you very much. Nice to have you here. Love the glasses.
Our youth are our future, and the FCCLA organization is building leaders for the future, so we appreciate them very much. We'd now like to move on to item number 15, which is a report from the Beautification Advisory Commission. And I'm not sure, Sean, are you representing? Okay. And if you could introduce everybody, and also if you could turn on your microphones there.
My name is Sean Arulian, and I am one of the members of the Beautification Commission. This is Gayla Muir, and Jim Campbell is behind me. And we might have a couple more show up here in a minute. If they do show up, we'll introduce them to you as well. So, Mayor and City Council, we're thankful for this opportunity we have to present our activities that we have performed last year and also some of our goals that we have for the upcoming year. So we'll go ahead and go through the slideshow as we have it. First of all, our kind of like our mission statement as the commission is, the Beautification Commission serves as an essential component in making Orem a great city. We work to help our fellow citizens and business owners understand and do their part in making Orem a more beautiful and appealing place to live. We recognize and support those individuals who strive to do their part. And Carol Manwaring is here with us as well. So, accomplishments of 2015. I'm going to go through and kind of briefly mention the things we've done, and then we're going to pick a few of them out that are a little bit more important to us that we'd like to talk about in depth. So to start off, we added 3 new members to our commission this year. We had several that had left, and so we added 3 new members. We participated in the Arbor Day activities that were scheduled. We had a entry in the Summerfest Parade, where we distributed quite a large amount of candy, which is, I don't know if people like to see us or the candy, but they were happy. We handed out quite a few residential beautification awards as well as business beautification awards. And we initiated the Adopt a Pot program, which we'll talk about shortly. And we continued with our hanging flower pot project. We continued again with our holiday home decorating recognition, which we do during the month of December. We had the UVU and Orem banner program started. Just to kind of quickly talk about that, the banners didn't work out because they were not made the way we were thinking they were going to be made, so they had to be removed. And now UVU is in the process of basically the ball's in their court, and they're in the process of getting new ones made that are going to be more weather resistant. And then the City Center Flower Bed Revival, and that's not a musical group, but we're talking about the flower bed that's out in front of the City Council building. The 3 new commission members that we added this year are Sherilyn Bennett, Chelsea Young, and Tanya Harmon. Now I'd like to go into the Residential Beautification Awards, and I'm going to turn the time over to Gayla. We're going to scroll through some of the pictures, not all of them, but not all the awards that we gave out, but through some of them. And she would like to talk about a couple of these, I think.
Okay, this one here was such an exciting one to award. Well, first, let me say there are so many beautiful yards in Orem. It's really hard to pin one down, but we have some specific things we like to follow for that. We're not necessarily looking for a professionally manicured yard. We look for special attention, people, extra effort. It might be hard for some people to take care of the yard, but they dedicate themselves to doing that. And so we do want to try and recognize those as well. This particular one is on 4th East and has been an eyesore for many years. And a gal moved in there and just dug in and cleaned and fixed it up, and you can see how charming it looks, and just made a great addition, especially to a major street like 4th East. Oh, wait.
I can go back.
Don't. I did this last time, didn't get right on. This one was really neat because it had a lot of old-fashioned, like snapdragons and stuff like that. It was a very summer garden.
Yeah, this is a little house on the corner of 4th East and 800 North. It's been there for like 10,000 years and looked at. Mm-hmm. And the thing that was the major improvement is when the walls were built down 8th North to hide it from the street. But this young couple moved in, they're renting. The yard was completely bare. They have scrounged and worked hard and bought plants and planted them, and they re-roofed the house, and they've made it look very nice compared to what it was before. And that's been carried on by several other homes in that area which really have needed help. And so that's the thing that we love about the Beautification Awards, is that it encourages others to improve too.
This is one that's really exciting. Not only is this one so charming looking and everything, but the woman that takes care of this is 79 years old, and her and her husband also own the home behind them and the one across the street, and she keeps them just as beautiful as this. Quite an effort.
Okay, I believe that's it for our pictures. Actually, they are here. Come on up, gals. Some of our presenters are here now, so I don't want to try to stumble through this.
They could go to the podium there if they.
Oh, there you go.
Either way,
Right here.
right there.
All right, so I'm
This-
going to talk
this is
about-
Chelsea.
I'm Chelsea Young. I'm new this year. Hello. So I'm going to talk to you about a couple of things that we have done as a beautification commission last year for less non-residential things we've been working on. So one of the first things we did that's new this year is the Adopt a Pot programs. So the concept here is that we noticed that quite a few of the businesses along State Street and Center Street had, like, they're essentially in a concrete wasteland. There's not a lot of green space around them. So what could we possibly do to help them beautify? And we had the idea that what we could do is this Adopt a Pot program. So the concept is that we approached 14 different businesses last year and asked them if they would be interested in putting forward some money, about $50, for a pot. And we would provide the pot, and it was filled with beautiful flowers, and it also came with instructions on care for the pot, how often it needed to be watered, and a watering can. So $50 is actually a really good deal. Ryan at Cook's Nursery has given us an excellent deal. It's a pretty steep discount for these businesses. The idea here is that if they were interested in maintaining the pot and wanted to continue next year, that would be this year, that they would take on more of the cost. They would pay more. And then we would take the 14 pots that we presented to the businesses the last year and go to 14 new businesses. We felt like it was fairly successful. There were some businesses that did a better job than others of watering their pots, but those who took care of it really enjoyed having it. Several of the businesses told us that they felt like they got more business because they had these pots out front. It kind of made them a little bit different and caught the eye. We even had one business who ended up putting out a table and some chairs for people to have some seating outside as well. So we felt that that has been really successful. Carol's Copy across the street here, and Jamba Juice, I think Jiffy Lube had one. There were quite a few businesses, and some did really well and are going to want to do it this next year. So we will be able to provide a pot for them next year, with Cooks giving them a discount, and then we'll be able to approach new businesses this year to continue it going.
I just want, oh, sorry, go ahead, Mayor.
I was going to say, what a great program. Looks beautiful. Thank you.
I wanted to thank Brent Sumner because he participated in this and purchased several for businesses that he had. So thanks to him.
So we also have the other one that we have is the hanging flower pot project. And those are the hanging flower pots that you have seen around the city center and also lining Center Street on the city center block. That is the fourth year. This is the fourth year that we have done that project, and we have 24 different pots that hang up around the town, and those have also been provided by Cooks as well. And I think the city has a watering truck that goes around and waters those. So this year, I think we have decided that we are going to take some of those pots, the pots that are on the side of Smith's on that side of the street, and hang them in other various places around the city center, so we can fully encompass the city center in these flowers.
Well, you're making Margaret proud, so thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
It's a much better pot program than Colorado has to offer.
Then I probably should skip the next slide I was going to show. No, I'm just kidding. We continued with our holiday home decorating recognition. We've only done this for a few years now, but we kind of the idea was to give out awards to people that decorated their homes with lights and Christmas decorations that looked nice, that looked like they took some time and effort. And so we gave these certificates out, and the mayor will recognize these because he had to sign a bunch of them. So we just have a few pictures, but this is always a great thing because we get a lot of excited homeowners, and they want to continue it next year and go more and more and more. And it's always nice during the dreary time of December to see houses decorated like this. Okay, so our goals for 2016, and I'll let any of the members that are up here that want to jump in, feel free to jump in. The first one is to encourage methods and practices that increase civic pride and enhance the beauty of Orem. For example, make recommendations for landscaping and developing areas, for example, like dog parks. And also the Commission's input on the State Street Master Plan, the continuation of the Orem City Flower Pot Project and the hanging flower baskets, and then our partnership with UVU and the light pole banners that I had briefly mentioned earlier. Our second goal would be make recommendations for neglected or unsightly areas of the city. Orem City Center, continued upkeep and care of the flower beds that we have around the city center. I mentioned the revival of our flower bed. We had been kind of maintaining that, and we're thankful now that the city is now maintaining that. We had a couple times where we went out there and weeded it and cleaned it out, but now we have some good flowers and plants in there that are going to be there for a while, and then we'll be adding annuals every year. So we feel that that's
Great.
The face of the city. When you come up to the city center, you want to see a nice flower bed. You don't want to see weeds. And then the City Flower Project, Adopt a Pot Project, in cooperation with local businesses on State Street. Number 3, encourage residences, businesses, and property owners to participate in spring and fall cleanup activities. And that would be primarily the partnering with neighborhoods and action groups. Number 4, encourage business and citizen involvement in beautification efforts. And some of these include participation with the Arbor Day, Orem Summerfest Parade participation. It's a great way for us to publicize what we do and who we are. The bulletin board with information and recognition at the city offices, which is just down the hallway. We do post pictures of beautification award recipients and other things like that, and also people that have donated to our fund. The commission Facebook page, the flower project funding, both private and business donations, which are on that recognition plaque that we have down on the bulletin board, and our continuing partnership with Cook's Greenhouse, which has been a very big help in us doing the things we've been doing with the budget that we have, and we're grateful for them. Number 5, recognize residential and business owners which have made contributions to the beautification of their property, and that's just continuing what we do every year is the awards for neighborhoods or residential and business, and the holiday decoration awards. And finally, to recruit new members to fill future vacancies on the commission. We do have a couple members one that will be leaving, and we have a vacancy, so this is a shout out right now. Anyone listening that wants to be a part of this commission, we are looking for new members and appreciate anyone that would be willing to help serve.
Sean mentioned that we had 4 or 5 that left the committee. We had a couple of couples that I know are well known in the city, and Aaron's dad left us as the commission chairman. My wife and I are completing our 3rd term. I was ready to leave and got elected to serve as chairman, and it is really a privilege to represent the city. I did go get my official badge so that when I go up and walk on their yard, they don't think I'm peeping through the windows or something. We've had a chance for 3 years. I don't know how we got on the committee, but I really want to thank those that had the vision. I know Margaret worked with Carol, and we enjoyed working with Margaret when she was here on the council. We really enjoyed working with Brent, and as Sean said, he has businesses, and he was one of the first ones to purchase those and kept them up. And we're happy. We met Debbie LeRae this last month. I mean, yeah, and she'd only been serving a few weeks, and she really blew my mind on how much stuff she knows that she's doing, and we're really grateful to have her. We're grateful to the mayor. I want you to know, you probably don't remember me, but we went to the Storytelling Festival 2 years ago, and you had been just elected, I think, or whenever you were just elected, and the first thing when you had a receiving line, you told my wife how beautiful she was, and she repeats that all over town. So it's made my marriage much happier.
Well, that's good.
But we really appreciate the support of the mayor and the city council members previously, and those of you that have been serving and are serving now. It's been a tremendous help to get a truck, and because you gave us money and we had funds that were donated, we were able to get the tank and the wand and the pump to water the flowers and keep them alive. And Carol's had a wonderful vision of what she wanted to do with these projects, and we're going to continue all of those things. So I just wanted to thank you for the support. It's nice to be here in Orem.
Well, thank you. You guys are a great committee, and we appreciate what you do. Debbie LeRae would like to make a comment.
I did want to say that I enjoyed my first meeting with you, and I found that you guys are very passionate people who love to beautify things, and I'm excited to work with you. I know there was one concern from the last meeting. You had mentioned panhandling was a concern for you. Did you want to make a comment about that issue at all?
Kind of premature.
Yeah,
Okay.
Carol.
We all have personal feelings about it, but Carol, come on up.
We were just concerned as a commission as we try to enhance the beautification projects that in a lot of our corners there are the distracting panhandlers, and we have noticed kind of a curve lately in them being rather active and even aggressive in their approaches to the cars. A couple of us had personal experiences, and so we were just hoping. We've got I'm actually got some ideas from Albuquerque, New Mexico, and we will forward that information. But we have heard concerns from citizens that this is becoming more and more of a problem.
So to that point, that's been a major concern of mine as well. And I would love to meet with you on that. So if you wouldn't mind making an appointment with my secretary, and let's have a discussion. Brent Sumner?
I just wanted to say thank you for serving on the commission last year. And every time I went, just seems like you're so excited to get things done. And you did get things done. And it's a fun commission to be on, Debbie. You'll really enjoy it. And thanks for all you do, and sign me up for those additional pots.
Jamie, do you have a comment?
Mayor, and just to members of the Beautification Commission, the issue of panhandling is one that the city is obviously very sensitive to. And Mayor, might I encourage you, when you do schedule that meeting, to meet with a member of our city attorney's office too, because there are some pretty significant limitations placed upon us by not only, I understand, state but federal law as to what we can do to address this particular concern.
Great, thank you. One other comment I wanted to make, the Intermodal Center for Front Runner, I don't know if you've been over there recently or not, but if there's anything we can do in the way of banners, et cetera, that would be appreciated. So we appreciate very much everything you're doing, so thank you.
Thank you.
And we do live in a beautiful city. Okay, we'll go ahead and move on now. I don't believe there's any appointments to boards or commissions. We'd like to move on to our personal appearance time. We have 3 people who have signed up to speak, and we would ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes and give us your name and address when you come forward. So first of all, we'll hear from Darrell Haig, and then Shauna Thibault, and then Bob Wright.
Thank you. My name is Darrell Haig. I live at 872 South and 725 West, and I'm here to talk about my opposition to ICO's proposed construction of a high-density apartment complex near UVU in the Sunset Heights area along 800 South. Our family has lived in Orem for nearly 23 years. The last 18 we lived in Cherry Hill, which we thoroughly enjoyed. But recently, several very large apartment complexes were built there, and those apartment complexes have changed the complexion of the neighborhood significantly, specifically overcrowding, traffic congestion, and an increase in crime. We felt that we had been transferred to South Provo, frankly. And we are not the first to move from the neighborhood, from Cherry Hill, and based on my conversations with people who live in Cherry Hill, we won't be the last. We love Orem. It's a family-friendly place. We've raised our children here. We've set down roots here. And so when we decided to move, we decided to look for a neighborhood that would be conducive to the goals of raising the rest of our children, being close to the schools that we love. And we found the Sunset Heights area. It answered all of our needs, and yet now with the proposal from ICO, we face the precise same problems that we thought that we were escaping. Ultra high density, creating targets for crime, and a significant increase in traffic circulation. I suggest, just as an experiment, that you try turning left or right onto 800 South from the Sunset Heights area and see how well you do. It's dangerous, it's difficult to see because of all the cars parked along the sides of the road. It's simply a dangerous place. Now, the members of our neighborhood are not opposed to development. We understand that Orem is significantly built up and that people have a right to seek out places to live, but we feel strongly that there are other options than an ultra-high density apartment complex. The Sunset Heights neighborhood has developed 7 alternative proposals to development in this area, including single-family housing, townhomes, a new school, for example, a new site for UCAS, church properties, and so forth. And we are happy to provide information about those proposals if you so desire. We are anxious to maintain the character and safety of this particular neighborhood and ask you to vote against ICO's proposal. If we had wanted to live in South Provo, frankly, we would have moved there. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Shauna Theobald, and I live at 665 West, 925 South in Orem, in a home that was built by my father-in-law 35 years ago. We've lived there for 25 years, and we've enjoyed it. It's a beautiful home. We can't replicate that anywhere else. That's part of our heritage. It houses all of our extended family members, and we have a great time when we get together. Our home backs onto UVU property, the perimeter road, and I was not excited about that aspect of living there, but we have come to appreciate UVU. They've got a significant buffer zone there, beautifully landscaped, well maintained, and that's really helped. The traffic at the UVU campus is a little different than the traffic and the activity would be in a rental area. The traffic and the activity die down on weekends, on holidays, and during the summer months. And so that gives us a little bit of respite from the continuous ongoing. So it's made it more livable there. Orem City motto, Family City USA. I was excited when I read the city municipal code on the website, and it says this, and it talks about student family overlay zone. It said it's created for the purpose of providing student housing in the immediate vicinity of UVU, where the impact of student housing on existing single-family residential neighborhoods can be minimized. The student housing overlay zone is designed to preserve the values of the family, and I'm going to throw in there the values of the homes as well. Quiet seclusion and clean air. If these words are truly a priority and a promise of Orem City, to protect the neighborhoods impacted by student housing. We would like to see those, at least that followed. We don't want the ultra-high density model that's being proposed by ICO. We do want the buffer zones in there. We want the opportunity to talk with these people, to be involved, to have more information, not a 600-page traffic report, but a report that will outline the impact of traffic, of the high density and so forth, that's understandable, that's readable, and that we can have input to. We truly want to join with Orem City in protecting our families, our homes, and our neighborhoods. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you.
My name is Bob Wright. I live at 1010 North, 700 West. Item 19, resolution Siemens Industry Incorporated agreement. This agreement is premature, needs to be studied further and authorized by the City Council as a necessary facility upgrade for energy savings and payment of nearly $17 million taxpayer money over 15 years, and approval each year by future city councils. Orem City Management has been overstepping their authority by hiring outside counseling firms for the past couple of years, creating situations without city council knowledge or approval, then asking them to solve the problems and authorize the expense of taxpayer money for several years. This agreement will affect all citizens citywide without any public input and should be canceled or tabled for further study and public input.
Thank you. We'll now go ahead and close the personal appearance. Item number 17, I don't believe there's any consent items. We'll move on to item 19, scheduled item, resolution of Siemens Industry Agreement, authorizing the mayor or his designee to execute a performance contracting agreement between the city and Siemens Industry pertaining to the installation of several facility improvement measures designed to significantly reduce the city's energy consumption, and a master lease agreement, associated leasing schedule, and an escrow agreement with Siemens Public Incorporated with regards to the financing of the equipment that will be installed as part of the FIMS, and authorizing the taking of all other actions necessary to the consumption of the transactions contemplated by such documents. The FIMS is the Facility Improvement Measures. Bill Bell is our presenter, and we have Mark Cram here from Siemens. Bill, we'll turn the time over to you. And we have Laura Lewis here as well. How are you?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. It is indeed a pleasure to be here tonight before you to bring these two items to you for your approval or recommendation. As I said in the pre-meeting, staff is excited about this project. We've been working long and hard on it. Steve, would like to thank Steve, our attorney. He's kind of consumed his life for the past 4 months. Taggart Bowen was my guy that was the lead on the project as well. But this project has a lot of potential to save the city of Orem's residents money. Basically, like I said before the meeting, potentially close to $50,000 a month in savings in our utility costs. The project will be paid for by already budgeted money that we'd be paying out to the utility companies. And so what we have for you tonight, I have Mark here with Siemens. He's going to give you a short presentation, and then we have Laura that can speak a little bit about the lease. And we'll just go forward with that with Mark.
Thank you, Bill. Much of this information, Mayor and Council, that we'll present is a review for you. We've been over this information with you on previous occasions, but we wanted to share some of the same information for the benefit of the public this evening. We wanted you to kind of be reminded that through this process of procurement, which has been vetted by the State Energy Office and the State Procurement Office, there are several value-added benefits that the city will receive in addition to what might take place under a normal construction/contracting process. And so, obviously, you all can read. I'm not going to go through these item by item, but you can see some of those benefits that have been outlined in this slide. I'm also appreciative that Laura is here. One of the notes that I don't actually have on that slide is you've gotten the benefit of a third-party review, an in-depth analysis and review of what we've proposed from a third party. So glad that Laura is here to participate. I also, this slide I think is helpful for the public to see that there have been multiple meetings held throughout the last year or so, a little more than a year, with members of staff as well as presentations to the City Council. Each of those progress meetings that are shown were actual presentations to the City Council, kind of milestone meetings that helped them understand the iterations we were going through with staff, some of the measures that had been considered and excluded, and so we kind of included each of you throughout that process. This is a list of the measures and the subsequent savings that accompany each of those measures. Again, we have been through each of these measures in detail and have verified and validated the savings potential for each of those. As Bill mentioned, by state statute, these projects are required to be cash flow positive, budget neutral to the city. What that means is there are no new dollars allocated for these projects from the city. The project is funded through the savings that it generates by the measures that we perform. This is a list of items that were considered in conjunction with this project, but as you can see, due to a variety of reasons, they were excluded from the project. So oftentimes the question comes up, did you consider this or did you consider that? And we like to include this slide so that the people in the public as well as the governing body recognize that there were several additional items that were investigated and analyzed that were not included as part of the final project for a variety of reasons. This is a kind of a proposed cash flow, and I need to mention, if you notice down there just beneath the table, the annual interest rate is shown, and it was the indicative rate that we've used throughout this process of 2.3%. The city has, subsequent to this, been able to negotiate an even better rate than that, which will improve the cash flow. The caveat to that is, and Laura can speak to this if she would like to, the caveat is the rate won't be locked until a couple of days before closing, and the closing is anticipated to be somewhere around February the 19th. We had the benefit of working with, as you can see from the list, many departments and individuals in city staff, and just want to recognize and appreciate their efforts throughout this process. Literally, there have been thousands of hours between the third-party review, staff time, Siemens time in developing this project, and we just appreciate the cooperative effort that has taken place to develop this project. Another thing that I think is important to note if I were sitting in your chairs, it was mentioned in the work session earlier that Siemens guarantees success. We guarantee savings. So it's no different with this project. We guarantee that you will save X number of kilowatt hours or gallons of water or decatherms of natural gas. If we fail, as a result of the efforts of this project, to have the city realize those savings, we are on the hook to make up the difference financially to the city. And that 99.3% number that you see there is an indication of the accuracy of our guarantee. So in 0.7% of the cases, we've had to monetize the loss in terms of those savings and refund those dollars to the city. So you can see from that number, our approach is very accurate. These are approvals that either have taken place previously or that we're seeking going forward, and you can see those are some approximate dates below. Of course, assuming the council approves the contract and the financing tonight, then the documents would be approved on or before February 12th, which would then lead to a potential closing date of February the 19th. Are there any questions?
So the savings that would be realized are then used to make the payments against the financing over a 15-year period. The value of this particular contract then is realized after the period of 15 years as far as savings to the city after everything's paid and upgraded.
So that's correct, Mayor. So you get the benefit of the improvements in the next 18 months during construction, and then you reap the benefit of those improvements through that term. But once that term is up, then all of the savings accrue to the city once those commitments are paid back.
And the payback term or time for that contract is how long again?
It's actually, correct me if I'm wrong, Laura, it's an 18-month construction period, and then the remaining period is 13 and a half years.
Okay.
So it's a total of 15 years.
Sure.
Yeah.
Any comments or questions from the council?
Could you put that table back up that has the cost and the payback? I thought that was, I've looked through that. I think it's very enlightening, informative. So on this particular chart,
You want the cash flow or you want the individual measures?
the individual measures,
Sure.
please, that show the ones that are, so you can see on there that the number 10.1 and 11.1 are kind of the big ones associated with this. What would the argument be for some of these other smaller ones, just not worrying about those and just focusing on the top 20% that really generate most of the the revenue savings?
That's a great question. The value, frankly, of this approach is that there are items, and you can see by the chart, there are items that have longer payback periods than others. The value is typically, because they have a longer payback period, oftentimes capital is not committed to those projects. However, since they have, generally speaking, a savings component attached to them, it makes sense, since they're contributory to the project, to include them in the project, because either they're near failure potentially, or again, they're items that sometimes are challenging to get capital dollars for. So it makes sense to aggregate them within the project and have an aggregate project that pays back in a reasonable period of time. Did that answer your question?
Yes. So, Bill, you've looked through these, and these all seem to be priorities for the development aspect that are going to be done, or are you recommending?
Yes, sir. Like the example I gave you in the study session, the boiler is the senior center boiler, and we had a big hole in it 2 days ago, and so we've been limping along hoping for this project so that we could replace it.
Okay. Jamie, if I could ask too, and Laura, you may remember this. Having been on the council for a little while, I recall this is not the first time we've done a situation like this. The ones that we've done before, and I don't remember specifically, have they been successfully implemented? Have we seen the savings from some of those in previous circumstances? Seems like we had some that were upgrading air conditioning, some electrical stuff, internal light to the building.
A few years ago, 3-4 years ago, we got the Obama energy fund. Basically, the Obama administration gave us close to $1 million for energy improvements. Most of those improvements were done to this building. We completely revamped the not the electrical, but the heating and air conditioning systems. Dramatic decrease in energy savings on that. And the building's been much more comfortable. If you've noticed in the last 3 to 4 years, we don't have the very hots and the very colds that we used to experience before. So that program, and most of that money, if not all, was from the federal government.
Okay. And it was a grant, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Lentz.
So I appreciate this being brought to our attention. I wish every council meeting we had the opportunity to approve a $50,000 savings to the city and in the process protect our environmental stewardship. And so I'm excited about this. One question I do have with some of the projects listed that we're not considering for this round of capital improvements for various reasons. I noticed there are some like solar panels, for example, that was listed that it might be considered for a phase 2 if the incentives are favorable. Is it anticipated with some of those that are on the second wave of that prioritized list that could be included in an amendment at a future date?
Yes, of course, we could. The reason, there's a few reasons why we didn't put solar panels on this time. Our roof on this building is way past its useful life, and so we need a new roof soon, within a few years, and so we'd have to replace that membrane before we put panels on it. So it's things like that, and the actual spacing. In order to get significant savings with panels, you've got to have a little more than what our roof would hold. And so the answer to your question is, in the future, if it became cost effective for us, we could implement some of these projects.
And Mark, as a follow-up, have you had, in your experiences with other communities that have done this, have you had cases where they have done a follow-up addendum or amendment to that agreement to do some of those second or third wave of projects?
Yes, sir. We're actually on phase 5 with Salt Lake City. So we have completed several projects with them. Some of the cities, frankly, that we've done projects for have been street lighting upgrades only. And for a variety of reasons. Maybe they have a new city center, maybe they have a small city center. But I think the best example is Salt Lake City. We've done a couple of recreation centers with Salt Lake City. We did an irrigation project where we did upgrades to park irrigation, and the savings funded new infrastructure at the Salt Lake City Cemetery, which is the oldest municipally owned cemetery in the country. So we were able to give them some much needed upgrades to their infrastructure. One of the most creative, I think, projects is with the Salt Lake golf courses, where we have helped them, and that project is still under construction. We are converting 2 of the golf courses from drinking water to secondary water to irrigate those golf courses, and that savings has gone to building an entirely new irrigation system at the Bonneville Golf Course, which heretofore, for 60 years or whatever it is, has been watered by hand. So they're already seeing some significant savings. There's some other potential up there that we're working on currently, but so multiple phases with them, and they continue to want to look at additional opportunities because they like the approach.
Thank you, Mark. And then just one follow-up for Bill. Could you comment on the feedback as your staff reached out to other cities that had worked with Siemens on similar projects and talk about the feedback those cities gave to Orem and their experience working with Siemens?
Yes, Taggart Bowen called all the references of all the cities that they've worked in Utah, and he got no negative feedback whatsoever on the project.
Bill, can you tell us who they called? Were they council members? Were they city staff? Were they city manager? Do you know?
Taggart is here tonight. Can we invite him to come forward?
Sure. This is the gentleman that called all the other cities from our city. That should be.
Yeah, I called Salt Lake City, and then I believe another city was Washington City.
Can you tell us who you called in those cities?
Do you remember the reference, Mark? It was one of the staff in Salt Lake.
I'm happy to help wherever you let me help,
Sure.
Taggart. Jim Cleland
Jim.
was the contact at Salt Lake City who has been responsible for three of the 4 phases, and he's not really involved in the 5th phase either.
And he's a staff member there?
Yes, he's over public facilities.
Okay.
I did talk to Jim on the phone. It's hard to remember his name. It's been like almost 2 years or over a year ago. But Jim gave really good feedback. It was all positive. Very impressed with Siemens' work, and I think they were on their 3rd year since the beginning of the project. So it was all really good. And then I called Washington. I don't remember the exact names. It's been a long time, but they're all really good.
Who?
It would have been probably Roger Carter, who's the city manager at Washington City, or Mark Henricks, Kevin? Henricks, Mark Henricks, who's over facilities for Washington City.
Okay. And all 3 then gave good recommendations.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, Councilmember Sumner.
A couple of questions, Laura. Maybe you could answer this. We're it's almost $7 million, if I remember correctly. If this thing goes south, who's responsible for that payment?
Well, under the agreement that Siemens has, I mean, I guess I'd want to know what you mean by going south. If it doesn't generate the savings that they have indicated, they are contractually obligated to make the difference. So let's assume for the moment, by way of example, the expectation is that it will save $50,000 in terms of dollar amount. The current debt service is estimated to be $46,000 a month after the first 18 months. So you get 18 months where, as things are being installed, you'll have savings that accrue then. If the savings is instead only $25,000, then Siemens would have to make up the difference between the $25,000 that you did save and the $46,000 in the debt service, as I understand it.
But if you get into a legal battle, who's responsible for the loan?
You better ask legal questions of your attorney. I can answer them, but it's better.
I'm not sure I understand what you mean. A legal battle over what type?
Well, I was just trying to find it. It read in the document that if there's a misunderstanding, we have 30 days to pay on the debt. I just can't find it here. If you don't agree on the service that's been performed in that time period, and you lock heads, who's going to make that payment?
Well, the city
is the city responsible for final payment?
Yes. So under the escrow agreement, we are obligated to make monthly lease payments. That's what they are. We're basically setting this up as a lease, so the city will actually be leasing the equipment and making monthly lease payments until it's paid off in full after 15 years. So we're really kind of dealing with 2 separate entities, although they're both Siemens. One is Siemens Public, which is the finance arm. The other is Siemens Industry, which is the entity that Mark Cram represents, and they're the ones who are installing all of the equipment. But and so we're really dealing with 2 separate entities, and it's 2 totally separate agreements, even though I guess it's kind of the same parent company, if you will. But we, under the escrow agreement, which is the financing part of the deal, we have an obligation to always make those lease payments. If something doesn't go right with the installation of the equipment, the equipment is faulty or it's bad installation, then we have remedies under that agreement with Siemens Industry. They have to, number one, they've got, some warranties on the equipment. There's manufacturer warranties. They're guaranteeing or warranting the labor that they're performing, that the equipment will be installed in a workmanlike manner and those types of things. So if something went wrong there, our remedy would be against Siemens Industry to get them to fix whatever problems that might exist. But in any event, we have to make the lease payments.
Orem City is responsible for payment.
I should make one caveat. There's, because this is it's a lease, It's subject to annual appropriation of funds by the city council to make those lease payments. So the city council could theoretically decide not to appropriate funds to make the lease payments. Basically say, we're done with this lease, we don't want to make them anymore. And so the problem is of course, that Siemens Public has a security interest in all the equipment. And so if that were to happen, then they would have the right to come in and repossess it. So,
But would still be on the hook for the loan, for the bond?
At that point, we would not. So if the city council said, hey, we don't like what we got for whatever reason, we don't want to continue making payments on the lease, you could decide not to appropriate funds. Say this, in 2 years you say, hey, we don't like this, we're not going to appropriate any more funds to make the lease payments. At that point, we don't have to make any more lease payments at all. Okay. It's like you were leasing equipment, and if you wanted to return it because you didn't like it, you have the option to do that.
But then that would affect our credit and all that.
I would certainly encourage you not to do that unless it.
Well, and that would affect our credit rating, yes.
And it would obviously be a mess if we have to take out the lights and the light poles in the buildings and things like that. I mean, it's not something that anybody anticipates is actually going to happen, but that is a possibility.
Yeah. Another question. I'm all about savings. I want to save money as much as anyone. I just have some concerns, like the rollout of the entire city for the streetlights. Now, I was around, I think Mark was around, and the mayor, when we went with the streetlights before, and it was a big headache because people's complaints on bright, I mean, it was new to the neighborhood. There were complaints, and it was just ongoing for a long, long time. My concern is if we roll out the entire city without kind of taking baby steps on a particular quadrant or neighborhood, how do I know that LED or that lighting is going to be satisfactory to the neighbors when we're rolling out all of the city? And the mayor brought up this in work session. And I've had the same problem. I put some lights in my office at home, and my wife wanted to save money, and I can't wait for them to burn out. I can't see my desk. I mean, the brightness is just not there. And I know we're talking different things here, but that concerns me a little bit as well. And then it concerns me too, where we're basically turning over all energy-saving responsibility to Siemens, and we're hoping that it works. And 15 years is a long time.
Thank you. Councilman, do you want to make any response?
I can try to reply to most of that. If I remember right, when we implemented the streetlight program, most of the city was without streetlights. Where I live, for example, right now, I have no streetlights in my whole block. If my city I live in put in a streetlight, it would be very bright there. And so what I remember what happened is all of a sudden we're putting in these lights and people were complaining like, whoa, it's bright. It's gone from dark to bright now because of the lights. That was most of our complaints. Right now we have streetlights in every part of the city, and we're just replacing those with the LED lights. And like Mark said in the pre-meeting, there might be a slight difference in the light, but it's not going to be a complete from dark to a bright light in my block. Hopefully that helps with that a little bit.
Well, once you've rolled it out, you've rolled it out, there's nothing you can do. I would like, I'd like to see a neighborhood or a cul-de-sac or something.
Yes, it is my understanding that Keith Larson has some of these LED lights throughout the city already. It's been in place for at least a year that I know of, most of them.
In groups?
And I'm not sure if the grouping or whatever like that, but I know they rolled it out for testing purposes to know whether to go with this or not. And I don't know of any complaints.
Okay. And you're going to get us a list of the...
Yes.
Okay. Councilmember Spencer.
So, if it sounds too good to be true, it normally is my concern. We're talking about showing us all the pros. What are the cons, Jamie or Bill, that you can see with this project? There's got to be some con somewhere.
Well, obviously, the biggest con that I see is that we're having to spend money in order to save money. But that's if we want to really reap the benefits of this, we have to do that. I don't know. I can't think of any other cons on the project that I could think of other than that we're going to go into a 15-year lease and have to pay that money back in order to save this.
Would you like to respond?
Yeah, I still
in addition to that, a couple of things to think about. The first one being obviously we have to spend money to save money. At the same time, we're contracting with a private firm and paying them a fee, a construction management fee. We're paying their contractors to do the work that some might suggest the city can do independent of a contractor, which is true. However, at the same token, we feel like the rollout time that we're talking about of 12 to 18 months is far better than what we could do independent of a contractor. We anticipate that rolling that out, even if we hired our own staff, would take significantly longer. And when we're talking about $50,000 a month in savings, you start looking at that and asking yourself, for example, we're talking about, for example, $500,000 a year, and do we want to forfeit that opportunity? And we do a cost-benefit analysis, and we determine that at the onset, it probably makes sense for us to hire a contractor and actually pay a fee, and obviously they have profit built into their plan as well. And so some might see that as a potential con in addition to what Bill's talked about. At the same time, one of the other cons, and I think we talked about that briefly in the study meeting, was we can't predict the future. And so we don't know exactly what's going to happen to all of our facilities, and we may be investing in something for 15 years when the useful life of the facility may only be 12 or 10 or 20 or 30. We don't know. We can't necessarily predict, and so we have to take a calculated guess as to how long the life of the facilities that we're going to work with are going to be around. We anticipate, for example, the largest piece of this project are our streetlights, and we don't anticipate that our streetlights are going to disappear in the next 15 years. At the same time, and again, this was something that was brought up during conversations in our pre-meeting, technology could change. And we may find, for example, 3 years down the road, a better solution. But when we do find that better solution 3 years down the road, we've forfeited $1.5 million potentially of savings. So is this project and proposal without its risks? I would suggest no. I think there are inherent risks in anything that we do. But as we looked at it from a cost-benefit perspective, we felt like the benefits outweighed the risks.
I have one more question. So on the savings guarantee, you mentioned 99.3%, so you paid the 0.7. So what does that equate in dollar-wise?
Well, that's just nationwide. So all the projects that we've completed nationwide, we've had a 99.3% guarantee accuracy. And this piece of information may help with your previous question. The data I'm going to give you may be a little bit outdated, but not much. We have completed as an organization over 1,500 energy performance projects with municipalities throughout the United States. This approach to procurement has been utilized over the last 15 years. Incidentally, it was passed in Utah in 2010, so it's newer in Utah than it is in other parts of the country. And we've also produced in those projects $2.3 billion in savings for those municipalities. To my knowledge, and I'm happy to allow anyone to do research, to my knowledge, no city has ever made the decision, hey, this wasn't a good project, come take the equipment back. I believe we have been 100% successful in performing the work to the good or to the value of each municipality.
Okay, Councilmember Seastrand.
Thank you. Back to me again. Had one other question. So the savings that we've looked at so far have been just from the energy savings. Are there other savings factors that we should consider besides just the energy? For example, currently, if a light bulb burns out, you have to go replace that, which we're currently doing. My understanding is that the LED lights have a much longer lifespan than the current bulbs that we're using. The process of putting new ones in at this point would save the replacement cost of some that we're going to burn out in 4 months or 6 months or a year from now. Are any comment on the additional savings it would see besides, to the city besides the energy savings?
Is that on the cash flow?
It's right here. It's in that.
Additional savings.
Operational savings.
Operational savings basically has been calculated in it there on the column, the third from the right. It's basically what you're saying. It's because we're putting all new equipment in, staff won't have to go keep messing with this boiler in the senior center. They won't have to replace the street lights as often as we're doing now. So that's what you're seeing there on that savings as well. So that's on top of the energy savings.
Yeah, that was my understanding too. So the energy savings is what's really driving the payback to Siemens and their organization, and it's guaranteed on the low side that if the energy savings doesn't come in as committed, then Siemens makes up the difference, right?
That's correct. However, the operational savings are calculated in the total savings amount. So they are part of the total equation. What I'll also point out is on line 3.1 there, you'll see a negative number. We also calculate when there are additional costs. So in the case of the pole evaporation control, I don't know, Trevor can tell you, he's sitting back here, but there are additional costs. That's why you see a negative number in that column. So not only do we include the energy savings and the operational savings, but if there are other costs associated with that measure, they're calculated in there as well.
Right. One other thought, in many of the Utah League of Cities and Towns meetings that we've been to over the last few years, this topic has been a pretty I wouldn't say it's been talked about a lot. A lot of the municipalities are looking to say, we see the energy savings, we see the move to the LED lighting, and using the energy savings as a financial means to pay for that enhancement and upgrade. It's not a new concept. It's one that's been utilized by many cities and has been a concept. So in my mind, I've wondered at what point that payback comes in to where we're in that same.
I mean, in fact, we've used it with our traffic signals and other technologies, so it is something that we're shifting to because there is obviously savings associated with, for example, our traffic signals operationally.
Did we also have some factor in the calculation of this that if the energy costs in the future go up, the cost of electricity, that generates an even greater savings for the city that's not currently being considered?
Yes, let me just go back or down a slide, 2 slides. So you can see down in that bottom section the escalation rates. That's exactly what you're talking about there. So we agreed with city staff on what would be reasonable, although these are again conservative escalation rates. It's kind of a two-edged sword. If we utilized escalation rates that are probably more closely to what the utilities are doing, it would generate more savings. But we like to err on the side of caution, like we know municipalities do. So those are rates that have proven over, certainly for the last 6 years this legislation has been available in Utah, those are actually very conservative escalation rates.
And so if the rates come in at that 3.5%, then it's basically as planned.
Correct.
If the rates increases come in less, that generates less of a savings, you're making up the difference from the...
Well, there's a caveat to that. So the savings are based on kilowatt hours, gallons of water, decatherms of natural gas. So it's not based on dollars. Historically, the escalation rates have been higher, so you'll see more savings. We haven't had a situation, and maybe Trevor, you ought to address this, where the energy rates have gone up not this quickly. Do you mind if Trevor addresses that?
Go ahead.
Or do you know?
If I could make a comment on this too, this is something that I looked at pretty closely when I was doing my review of the contract. And the savings that are being projected here are actually dependent upon those rates going up by at least that amount. So that if it's less, that's actually one of the risks that was mentioned, is that you will not realize that same amount of savings if those utility rates don't go up at least that amount. And just, for historical purposes, I went back and looked at those natural gas and electricity rates over the last 20 years to see if they had historically gone up by those amounts. And in fact, they had. They had gone up by at least those amounts. And so the past is no guarantee of what might happen in the future, but it's at least some indication that historically those rates have increased by at least that amount.
Thank you.
You may want to take out this year. They're actually going down this year, but
They are, you're right, and that's why I looked at a 20-year period, because in some of those annual periods, they did go down, natural gas in particular, and that's been the case, the recent trend as well. But again, if you look over a longer period, that seems to be the case.
understand. Laura, did you have a?
I was just saying, if rates go up more than that, I mean, there's, because of our lovely air quality, there's a lot of pressure on the electric utilities to start funding in a different way than coal, which is very cheap. We have very, very cheap electricity here in Utah. And as that happens, you would see even more savings. So you could also reap a larger benefit than it's being projected as well. One other thing I wanted to mention, it was discussed has been discussed how Siemens is the provider of the new equipment and the installation, and they're also providing the financing. I wanted to let you know that we went out to a separate bid relative to financing. We got 6 bidders, and Siemens was the lowest by probably close to 17 basis points. So we did go through a competitive process on that element, separate and apart from them providing the services.
Okay. Let's go ahead and go to Councilmember Sumner.
Yeah, as I mentioned previously, it looks like we're pretty well turning our energy savings over to Siemens. And there's a whole list here from boilers to, everything Orms owns. Like the treatment plant, we just spent $13 million to update that a few years ago. It wasn't very long. How could we save there? I'm sure there's, is the need there for all these facilities, I guess is what I'm asking. And then where we're pretty well 100% Orem on this rollout, you mentioned Salt Lake, but you just mentioned like the rec center, the golf course. Has any city rolled completely out like you're proposing?
Yes, sir. Washington City, we did work in their city hall, in their community center, which is their recreation center, and also in their water treatment plant, and we did their street lighting. So that was a multifaceted project. And I think it's interesting to note with Washington City, they own their own electric utility, and so even though their own rates to themselves are more competitive than what you're getting from Rocky Mountain Power, the project still showed a positive return.
And Mark, maybe you can comment on the age of the city center and the age of the rec center, because both of those facilities are relatively new.
I can on the rec center. I'm not sure City Hall. That'd be a guess, but the city center was, when we started the construction, was less than 4 years old. They had built the facility, like many cities, on a limited budget. And so there were some opportunities in that community center to do work that enhanced the use and the usability of that facility.
Okay.
Have you had another city in Utah roll out the whole thing like we're doing? You mentioned Washington.
That's the only other one. Others have basically done street lighting.
Okay, so in the Salt Lake you're talking about, it was just rec center, golf course, that kind of thing.
Let's see, 2 rec centers.
But no complete cities.
Well, it's a pretty big city, but multiple phases that, those phases have essentially been the same dollar amount for one phase as you're anticipating for the entire city.
Thank you.
Councilmember Lentz?
I would agree that we are transferring a lot of the responsibility to conserve the city's energy to Siemens, but to be fair, that is your professional expertise, and I think more importantly, we're transferring almost all of the financial risk in making those investments in these kinds of capital improvements. We have talked a lot about what happens if we don't necessarily realize those savings that Siemens would guarantee that. On the flip side of that, if these estimates are conservative and we end up, instead of 50,000 in savings per month, if it ends up being 70,000 per month, am I understanding correctly that all of that would go to the city, or is there like a sharing agreement with Siemens where they would get a portion of that?
The Orem City would get that benefit only.
Okay, thank you.
So I have a couple of questions, Bill, and maybe Mark can answer this as well. What is the useful life of the new street lights? Projected useful life? I know LED is new technology. That might be a question, but I was just curious.
This will be a little bit rule of thumb, but I think it'll get the answer to your question. The LED technology is rated for between 80,000 and 100,000 hours. Again, we always like to look on the low side, so let's say 80,000. Burn hours is just south of 4,000 hours per year. It's 3750 or something. It's
so 21, 22 years.
So roughly 20 years.
Okay. And then for the installation cost of the new lights, do we have kind of an estimate of what that is? Not the light themselves, but the installation costs?
On the project?
Yes. In other words, if we were to put in, or we were to hire someone to put in the street lights, excluding the cost of the product, do you know what that installation cost would run?
Kevin might know that. I'm trying to see. Yeah. Kevin, can you break that out roughly?
Yeah, I know the city looked at doing it themselves, and like we talked about, it was a 4 to 5 year term to get all the lights replaced. It's roughly 1.2 million.
Okay. So if I remember right, we're spending $400,000 a year on electricity on our streetlights. Is that correct?
That sounds correct. I'll ask Trevor to confirm.
I believe that's correct.
That sounds right.
And I believe the cost to purchase the new LED lights is between $1.5 and $2 million if we bought them. We've looked at this before, but I don't know if you remember that.
We actually, because we worked with Keith, you guys had received pricing from Hall of Fame, from the manufacturer. We actually were able to, because of our buying power, we actually were able to reduce that upfront cost considerably. And we did also get an agreement from Rocky Mountain Power for the incentive upfront as well, of $500,000+. So that reduces the overall cost.
The incentive is $500,000?
Correct.
Okay. And then are you allowed to tell us what the cost of the lights are?
I don't know it right offhand. I apologize. I'd have to look it up. Our overall price is, that's the large FEM of $3 million.
So you've got $3 million there. Where I'm going with this is if we as a city did this and $400,000 would be cut in half to $200,000 for the cost of the lighting, the electricity. So over 10 years, we would save $2 million, but it would cost us approximately, what I recollect, $1.5 million to $2 million to buy the lights. So you have a wash there. But then it would cost $1 million to install the lights. So what I'm coming up with is the figure that you have here, 3.1, is basically the same as what it would cost us if we were to accrue the savings of the $2 million and spend the $2 million. The $500,000 from Rocky Mountain, I don't know that we're getting that in this particular picture. And the financing might be a little bit higher. I don't know, Laura, one point higher, half point higher?
Forget this, sorry. But your financing cost would still be very similar to what you're getting now.
So I guess what I'm saying is I look at this, our cost and your cost are basically the same outside of the Rocky Mountain Power credit for 500,000.
I would agree with that. The initial numbers I saw from Keith would confirm that. It would be very close.
Okay.
So again, we're implementing in 12 to 18 months versus 4 to 5 years as well.
So, and that's true. And so we as a city looked at this, and Jamie, you may remember, we talked about this a couple of years ago, and I believe these were the costs at that time. Did you have a comment?
Yeah, and I think it's important, too, to note as it relates to Rocky Mountain Power that the credit and the program that we have today is a little different than it was even 2 years ago. And there's no guarantee that this program will continue into the future. So we may get, for example, 2 or 3 years into an install, and the credit that we were anticipating from Rocky Mountain is no longer there. So,
well, I would not expect you to be doing this without making a profit. And this is the biggest portion of it. But I just wanted to compare where we are doing it ourselves versus doing it with you, and we are looking at a time savings of about 3-4 years. Yes, Bill.
And also, Mayor, if we do it ourselves, we wouldn't have the guarantee for energy savings and what was the other thing?
Extended warranty.
Oh, extended warranty. They've negotiated a 12-year extended warranty.
And tell me about the extended warranty. 12 years beyond the first 2 years, 12 years beyond at what point in time?
So the first year would be labor and material, full coverage,
Okay.
and there would be an 11-year extension on the material warranty only. So any
Okay.
outages, the material would be provided to city staff to be replaced. So there would be no material pricing.
And do we experience problems with the lights, or do you know?
From what we've seen from the other projects we've done, and like Mark said, most of them were induction and not LED, we were getting about a 2 to 3% failure rate in the first year to two. We expect less for LED. The manufacturers claim less. They claim a 1.
So if that were holding true for LED versus induction, over a 3-year period, it'd be about a $200,000 failure rate.
Again, it wouldn't be at the cost of the city. There would be no cost for the material. It would just be the labor to replace the light.
Right, but I'm just saying material-wise, if you calculate that out,
Yes.
I believe
Yes, sir.
it runs about that.
Mayor, one other comment that may be helpful. So the technology you're installing has 4 times the life of the technology that you have currently.
Yes.
So you're replacing them 1/4 as frequently. So.
Jamie, I don't know if you know that. I mean, it seemed like it was about every 5-6 years we're replacing the lights, but.
Maybe Chris can come forward and speak to kind of the maintenance program we have with our existing street lights.
Our existing lights, we replace about every 3 years.
About every 3 years?
3 years.
And the cost for those lights?
I don't.
Seemed like they were, I could be wrong, but it seemed like they were $25 or $50.
It was in the 20 to 25 range, I believe.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
That's just material.
Okay.
No labor or other overhead costs.
Right. Okay. Okay, thank you, Chris. Councilmember Spencer.
I was going to ask about the warranty, and you already asked that question, so thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Lurie.
I just wanted to talk to Laura a little bit. As you reviewed this lease, did you have any concerns, or give me your opinion on what you think?
I'm live now. As we looked at the 6 different bids that you received, Siemens was far and away the winner, not only on the low rate, but they also have the lowest cost if you want to prepay. So there is a 2% penalty if you want to prepay the lease, given where interest rates are today and where they're, I mean, I don't have the perfect crystal ball, but when you're at the very bottom floor, I'm reasonably expecting that in the next 15 years they'll be higher than they are today. The likelihood that you'd want to prepay is very low. But in the event that you do, they also offered the lowest prepayment penalty of 2%, where the cover bidder, the next closest bidder, was 3%. So yeah, there's no unusual requirements. There's no, I mean, everything is very reasonable. We spent a lot of time working through some tricky, potentially tricky legal issues. Some are tricky, some, were potentially tricky, and we've worked around that. But I'm very confident with the lease and the terms and the requirements.
Had you looked at the Washington City lease or the Salt Lake lease?
I have not. We're not Washington City's financial advisor, and we may have been Salt Lake City's financial advisor at the time, but I don't think they did any.
You were fired too? Okay.
They didn't do any external financing related to it, so
okay.
Brought to our attention.
Do you have friends who looked at it? You don't know?
I don't know.
Okay.
Okay. One thing that as I look at this, basically, to me, I see this as what we're doing is we're using the money from your financial part, half of your business, to fund this, and then the money that we're saving, we're paying that back. So I see this as pretty much a wash. I don't see it being much different than if we were doing it ourselves, except that your timing is much quicker. And so the advantage to me is there. But as I do the calculations, you have advantages that buying power, et cetera, that helps you to make a profit. But if we were to do it on our own, I think our costs would be very similar. And doing it on a lease program, we're pretty much saying, do we want to do it as buy a new car, or do we want to lease a new car? And we realize that our car has a boiler in it, and the boiler's going to blow up in about 3 years. So do we want to buy a new car, or we want to lease a new car? So anyway, I find this advantageous and feel like it'd be beneficial to the city. But let's keep going. Councilmember Sumner.
Maybe Jamie could answer this. I think the council gave direction a couple of years ago that we pay as we go, and maybe you could comment on that. And it looks like we're taking out a $7 million bond or close to it. Mayor, I'm all about savings. I want to save money, but I feel like I've got my first year law degree reading this document about 5 times, and I'd like more time to study it and possibly put it off for a couple of weeks.
Okay. Councilmember Lentz.
I'm ready to make a motion.
Okay.
Is there anybody that would like to ask more questions?
Hold on. Councilmember Strand, do you have a comment?
So Mr. Sumner would like a little more time to review a couple of things. I think your key issue is you want to see one of the lights that's been installed and get a feel for the brightness and the issue.
I have a lot of questions now after this, and I want to read through the documents again. I want to talk to these cities and get references. And to be honest with you, Councilman Seastrand, in my previous life, I had every time I put all my pebbles in one vendor, it came to bite me. And that's just an old guy speaking, but...
we don't use pebbles anymore.
Yeah, but we're turning over our complete energy savings to this group, and they have a great track record, but I just want to be positive before I commit to a $7 million bond.
Yeah. Is there an impact with, so a delay of 2 weeks, does that create some additional risk of interest rate changes, or tell me what the implications are?
I'm going to get this red light thing. I like training a monkey. There is interest rate risk up until 2 days before we close. That's when the rate is locked. And we've seen interest rates fall a lot in the past little while. I mean, we keep saying they can't go any lower, and yet they have. So there is some interest rate risk. I'm not of the opinion that it's, so alarming. I don't see any signs that lead me to believe it's going to be skyrocketing tomorrow. And so there is that risk, but I don't think it's, a life or death sort of risk.
So you see no problem?
Would see no problem.
Sam, if you want to hold on for a second, we got a couple of comments. Councilmember Spencer?
I just, with Councilman Sumner, if he has that kind of concern, maybe we should table it and So we can also have Tom McDonald here also to discuss and maybe look at the lights and be able to get references, but that's my 2 cents.
Jamie?
There's one other risk I had failed to mention. Within the contract that Siemens, again, this isn't on the interest rate financing component, it's on the contract to buy and install the lights. My understanding is that they have guaranteed their pricing for a certain time, and I think it's beneficial to find out when that time expires. They have been very patient. This process has taken a long time and a fair amount of vetting, and I'm not really sure when that drop dead date is, but I know that it is out there.
Mark, do you know what that is?
If it's all right, Mayor, I'm going to have Kevin respond to that.
Okay.
He's the one that deals directly with our subcontractors.
Okay.
Simple answer is it's every day. I mean, we've already had a couple of increases. We've held prices for 6 months now, I believe, Bill. We've had the contractors hold. So far, it's been 2-3% increase that honestly we've been absorbing. So it's at our expense at this stage.
Okay. Jim, comment?
If I may speak to Councilmember Sumner's question relative to pay-as-you-go, you are correct. We do have a philosophy of pay-as-you-go. That policy, however, is predicated on setting monies aside to do just what we're talking about, to pay for things as they come and as we move forward. In this particular circumstance, we've never set any money aside. So if we continue with a pay-as-you-go philosophy, in this particular situation, we will never swap them out because we have never set aside any money for replacement. So it puts us in kind of a unique situation in that we have never set money aside for their eventual replacement, and as such, we don't have a balance and we can't draw any available monies to move this program forward. The only solution we have at this point is to enter into some sort of financial arrangement to front the funds necessary to pay for the improvement.
Well, and it's kind of a unique program in that regard because you think of, you're sort of paying as you go out of the energy savings. If you said we want to save money from energy savings and then we'll install them, it's backwards. So this is kind of a unique project where you get to make the payments out of the savings as you go, but you don't get to see the benefit of those savings until you install the equipment. Does that make sense? I mean, it's kind of a unique animal.
Yeah. Okay. So, Councilmember Lentz, I'm not ready for a motion yet.
Fine. So that's fine. So I guess my concern with essentially punting for another 2 weeks is this conversation has been going on for over a year now. And even before I was on the council, I had opportunities to reach out to our development services staff and ask questions to get an understanding of what this does mean, what it doesn't mean. And if the concern is simply that we're not comfortable turning over the finances and the risk management for this to one entity, that's not going to change in 2 weeks. So I guess what would we be hoping changes in that 2 week period, or what questions do we need answers to that we don't know now?
Councilmember Sumner.
Well, I just want to say, we had a retreat last weekend. I've had 1 day to read this document, this, 100-page legal document of a great job by our staff. But I just want time to look at it and absorb all this information. I just got most of this packet yesterday. I mean, we got it Friday, but we were at our retreat, and I couldn't study it. I don't see what 2 weeks will hurt. I don't know. Anytime someone says you want to do it now, it concerns me.
Okay. So I like what I see. I think this is a good agreement, but I'm also sensitive to Brent's feelings, and I think Councilmember Spencer's feelings. But Sam, I'll go ahead and turn some time over to you.
Okay, we'll give it a shot. So I move that we, by resolution, authorize the mayor or his designee to execute a performance...
A question right there by clarification. Typically, the mayor signs the contracts. legal, could you tell us what the designee part, is that necessary in there?
Well, it's anticipated that you, the mayor, would sign the document, but if for some reason you were sick or out of town and unavailable to do that, you could authorize, say, the city manager to sign on your behalf.
Okay, but it's anticipated that the mayor would sign this agreement?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, go ahead, Sam.
To execute a performance contracting agreement between the city and Siemens Industry Incorporated and a master lease purchase agreement, associated leasing schedule, and an escrow agreement with Siemens Public Incorporated.
Is there a second?
Yay. I'll second.
Okay. All right, we'll start with Councilmember.
Mayor?
Hold on, there are two items here, so we're just going to, if I'm not wrong, is this the same item, or are we doing two separate?
No, it's just all one item.
All
so,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay, we'll start with Councilmember Spencer. I'm sorry. We'll start with Councilmember LeRae. Or do you want to go? Okay.
Aye.
Aye.
So I'm in favor. However, I'm also okay with the 2-week. Just one more little look at it from that standpoint.
What does it hurt?
And so I'll vote nay, and then offer a counter motion. But I don't recall the the specific.
If I may, I mean, as long as the risk is understood, that we don't know if we can come back to you with the same pricing in 2 weeks that we are here with you tonight, whether it's interest rates, whether it's the relationship with the subcontractors. I mean, if in the all-perfect world, it's the same deal in 2 weeks from now, but it may not be.
Okay. So yours is?
I'll say nay in favor of waiting.
Okay. I'm in favor of this agreement, but I would like to give Brent the 2 weeks to look at it, so I will say nay with the hopes that we continue this for 2 weeks.
Nay.
Nay.
Okay, so the resolution does not pass. Councilmember Eastran.
I would move that we, and again, is now the proper time for a counter motion? Okay.
Continue.
I would move that we continue this decision for 2 weeks from today, which date would be February 23rd on City Council meeting.
I second that. Okay, Councilmember Spencer.
Aye.
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 I would hope that we can be more efficient with this in our next meeting at the very least. Nay.
Aye.
Okay, the resolution passes, or the
Mayor,
continuance passes.
Mayor, with that passage of the motion, may I just clarify in terms of expectations what you are looking for, so that we can have the Siemens staff prepared to present again to you as a body? So what I heard was obviously some concerns about the light themselves, and to get you some addresses as to location, additional time obviously to study and to read the agenda item.
Also, I think the ability for some on the council to, in whatever manner, have a conversation on the references, either together with the city staff to that individual.
So a follow-up on the references would be a third item?
Right, and go ahead.
And I would like to request that I'm not from the city council or city manager, but the people involved.
From for example, the facilities managers,
Or
those that are managing the systems?
Power, I don't know.
Okay.
Whatever they
Okay.
Okay.
Anything else in addition that we can advise Siemens?
Well, I'd just like to meet with Bill a couple of times. I've got some questions.
So Mr. Bell will make himself available with staff for the discussion.
In closing, I would just like to again voice my support. I think this is a good program. I think it will work well for the city, and I look forward to passing it in 2 weeks. So, thank you. We'll now go to item number 26. This is amending the policies and procedures for city option funding of recreational and cultural facilities and cultural organizations, known as the CARE program, and Steve Downs, if he hasn't gone home, is our presenter. So,
Okay, I will try to keep this under 45 minutes, but this is an update for care policies and procedures. This is just an update that we've been looking at, and obviously there's a discussion about the mid-major, but in general, it's just to reflect any changes to state code and also to the most recent election, just to make sure that the care, of course, policies and procedures reflect that language. Just as a brief kind of overview of the care program, we're projecting this year about $1.96 million in care funding, and that's compared to last year's $1.89 million. And that projection does include $48,000, almost $49,000 surplus because we projected conservatively last year. That has been rolled into that number. As you know, all revenue will be split 50-50 between recreation and cultural arts, with a 1.5% be coming out for administration. This represents an approximate increase of $39,000 for each grouping. Those numbers are reflected below and will come forward, of course, as we have the applications which go out on Thursday and will be due on March 10th. We've talked about the creation or the addition of a mid-major category. We spoke about this a few weeks ago. We've come up with a couple criteria that we feel will meet the desired outcome of creating a mid-major category. The one first being that they must be a 501c3 designated by the IRS, not just a private nonprofit, as many of the mini grants are. They must manage and present and be an actual Orem.
So, Steve, just a question. I believe this to be true, but you do get a copy of their 501c3 designation, correct?
We do. And the grant amount that would be eligible would be $5,000 to $9,999. And as we spoke about previously, somebody could apply for a mid-major and be awarded a mini grant. You don't have to stay within that bounds. It doesn't have to be $5,000 at least or nothing. You could move them to a mini grant, and then they would just meet the qualifications of a mini grant. The pros and cons to this, just to make sure that it's clear. The pro, of course, is there could be additional funding to organizations that currently don't meet the major grant qualifications. Specifically the 35% of operating expenditures. The con could be that while some of these aren't 501c3s, any of them could become a 501c3 and therefore qualify. And so each year as we add up what the total request amount is, that number could climb or other organizations decide to meet the qualifications necessary for a mid-major. So while it may be just a handful now, that doesn't mean that it would be a handful in the future. The other changes that were reflected in the care policies and procedures update are to eliminate some restrictive language. We had explicit details to what constitutes dance, what constitutes history, what constitutes each of those, and those were defined by us but could be altered. So we just eliminated some of that language. Again, we made updates to reflect the current state code and the recent election in 2012. And then it raises the major grant where currently that was at $5,000, now that's a $10,000 minimum, so that there's no overlapping between a mid-major and a major.
So, Steve, could you go back just a minute where you talk about eliminating restrictive language? Can you give me a little better explanation of that?
I can, yeah. And Greg, I have it here as well, but feel free to chime in. We used to have, and this would be page 5, so 5.3, we used to have detail what all of these different things would mean. For example, we would have, let me give a theater, we have classic / revival, contemporary / new work, music theater, where now we just say theater, because theater obviously could be something other than that, and you may feel that it's I guess we didn't want you to be restricted by that it wasn't explicitly said in the care policy. Is that accurate?
That's correct. And several of the things that we defined in the old policy actually don't even apply to city grants. They applied to county grants. And I think this language was originally borrowed from Salt Lake County when they developed their policy. The hope was to give the city council some flexibility in what you decide theater means or what you decide storytelling means or these various things that you are authorized to grant for.
Okay. Thank you.
We didn't want to paint you into a corner.
Sure. Okay.
And with that, that's all I have. So if there's any questions or further discussion, open, of course, to any of those.
Hold on. Councilmember Lurie?
In the previous slide, you said manage or present. How are you defining the word manage? Does that mean have a physical address, have an office? What does that mean?
Typically, that's been that they are an Orem organization.
So that means a mailing address?
We do some mini grants to an organization that's in Linden or Pleasant Grove, but they're doing performances here in Orem. And in this case, they would actually have to be in Orem.
So that means a physical building or a mailing address?
Yeah, I guess their address. Some of these nonprofits are small enough that they do them out of their home.
So the word manage would be to have an office or mailing address in Orem?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it basically is to eliminate those that are based in American Fork, but just have performances in Orem.
Okay, that's what I wanted to determine. Thanks.
That's American Fork.
We like American Fork too.
Yes.
Councilmember Seastrand?
Thank you. My one concern that, as I've kind of thought about this, is, one of the designations with the major grants is that there's also some connection to expenses tied to their operating costs, that they couldn't qualify for more than 35% funding, because the intent was to say we're really not looking for the care tax to be their primary funding source of revenue. The mini grants don't have that requirement. They don't have that limitation, but it's also for a $5,000, fee. It's appearing to me that the only difference between the $5,000 and the $10,000 maximum is just that it's a 501c3, and there's no other real clarification or qualification that would say this is what would merit that it's a vital strategic nature to the strategic arts plan, or that there's nothing that really defines that other than I'm a 501c3 and I can ask for more money, as opposed to saying there's some real definitive reason why the extra money would merit the applying for the medium grant, the in-between grant.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't want to put too much, I guess, subjective language as to what that could mean as far as they are important or critical to Orem and its cultural arts. This request originally came forward because some members of the council have made a suggestion that there's organizations they feel are warranted more than $5,000 but don't meet the current major grant qualifications, specifically because they don't really have many operating expenditures. They do a single event or a few day event. So that was, I guess, the intent was that it would leave some flexibility so that if there's ones that the city council feels are really important and they'd like to support to a greater extent, they have that ability to do that.
I think the downside will be, and it's not that we can't come back and change it next year, but as the council goes through it this particular year, my concern is most everyone that is a mini grant now is going to be a 501c3 and apply for the $10,000 grant, and there's no real difference in terms of that, other than that the city council has to make an objective decision or a subjective decision on the nature of what.
Yeah, and I wanted to, as listed as the con, I wanted to make sure that was clear too, because I see that as a potential problem as well, and it would make it some very difficult situations. Now, with that said, there was, again, the request that there's some that they'd like to, but we can't write specific, organizations, of course, into the code.
I would think, just as I think out loud, that there is some benefit in saying part of the reason for the care tax and the allocation of the grants is because we want organizations to grow and to become more self-sufficient, and to be able to have operating funding from a variety of sources rather than just the care tax. I would like at some point in the next year to look and see if there's some way to have some viable connection, that in order to qualify for the $10,000 grant, there's also some significant, other funding sources that come to support that, besides just, we like you better and we're going to give you an extra load of money. I'm not trying to be facetious or anything, but just it's a fairly subjective criteria as far as whether they're 5,000, 10,000.
So as I look at it, that I've considered that you might have 30% or whatever of the minors want to move up to the mid-major, but in that particular instance, the minors may have, the ones that are left may have more of a chance to receive funding that might not be thrown out. So there are two different ways to look at this, and I think it's important as I look at it. We have some organizations that I feel like we should give more money to, but are not a major. So I feel like this is a benefit. I feel actually that this will be a help to us. So, so with that, Councilmember LaRae, do you want to make a motion?
I move to amend the policies and procedures for city option funding of the recreation and cultural facilities and cultural organizations known as the CARE program.
I'll second that. Councilmember Spencer.
Aye.
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 Okay, the resolution passes.
Just again, the applications will go out this Thursday, and there will be a new application, and that's prepared to go out, and that'll be available online as well.
Okay, thank you. Jamie, any city manager items? Okay, so I would accept a motion to adjourn.
Moved. So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Okay. Rush at the same time.
Thanks, Mayor, for giving us a little more time on, or May.
Yeah.
It really
No,
was.
I
don't
feel
know
that's
what-
appropriate.
2 weeks? Doesn't matter.
You're fine.
I guess, just what my context, I've seen that with the last March, as they were talking about it, I sent that one.